1 week after President Trump declared the opioid epidemic a national public health emergency, his commission, led by New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, released their recommendations on how to best combat the crisis. One of the ideas seems to be prevention in the form of advertising, and the president likes that one. Alex Miller joins us now. You have been looking today, Alex. This has been an interesting day for you. You've been looking at all these ads throughout the last, 3 decades or so, trying to prevent drug use. How do they work out?
Not so well. These ad campaigns, Trump's not the first person to think of this. We've had them over the last 30 years. It brought back some memories looking at all the ads that we grew up with. And those ads that we saw growing up were overly dramatic. And the experts that I spoke to say that's the reason, likely, why they didn't work.
You probably remember the commercials.
You just better know what you're jumping into.
Sarah.
She won't answer you. Or she can't.
Why not?
This is the way it's been since she started smoking pot.
This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs.
Those ads were supposed to stop you from doing drugs. They first hit the airwaves back in the 80s as part of Nancy Reagan's campaign.
Say yes to your life. And when it comes to drugs and alcohol, just say no.
The First Lady traveled the country to promote her Just Say No campaign as the popularity of crack increased and prison penalties for drug crimes skyrocketed. The all-out media campaign worked alongside DARE. The program, still around today, is in nearly 3/4 of American schools. A police officer comes into the classroom to encourage students to stay away from drugs and gangs. Both of these programs have seen limited success. And remember those commercials that were supposed to stop you from smoking pot? The National Institutes of Health say it may have done the opposite. According to a study of 12.5 to 18-year-olds from 1999 to 2004, ad campaigns were, quote, unlikely to have favorable effects on youths. Even more, some rounds of the study proved watching more commercials actually predicted teens would be more inclined to use drugs. All that after Congress spent about $1 billion on ad campaigns. Critics say the ads focused too hard on appealing to members of Congress, older white males, and didn't translate well to teens. After widespread criticism, a new program called Above the Influence was created. The message, by not using drugs, you actually have more freedom. You may also remember seeing the Truth ad campaign. The results were better than before at reducing marijuana use, but opioids are an entirely different beast that experts say may need a different approach entirely.
So if the White House is going to do an all-out media campaign, experts say that it needs to be a little bit different than the ones that we've seen in the last 30 years, because abusing prescription medication, which is usually what we're seeing now, it's so different than the campaigns that we saw. The problem is so different than what we've seen with smoking pot and with
heroin or anything.
Right, and I mean, they had meth ads, and it's just such a different problem now than it was back then.
What do ad campaigns need to do now that they didn't do back then?
Any ad campaigns around the issue of opioids should first and foremost make clear that it's very dangerous to use opioids unless prescribed by a doctor. And even if being prescribed by a doctor, it's important to work with the doctor.
So the ads 20, 30 years ago focused on marijuana and cocaine, crack cocaine, mostly. And that was getting it from a dealer and how dangerous that was. Now we have opioid use, and most of the time the place that people are getting their drugs from is the doctor who they've been raised to trust. How do you approach this issue?
Yeah, a lot's changed between the opioid epidemic and previous drug epidemics. They were a little more vague. There were a lot more scare tactics involved. And unfortunately, all it takes for those to be invalidated is a person trying the substance once and realizing, they don't die or they're not arrested immediately. So, the opioid epidemic is different because we're not having to warn our kids, don't talk to the drug dealer at school or the drug dealer who's some shady character standing on the corner. We're having to talk about not taking pills from your friends if they offer them at a party, not going into medicine cabinets and taking pills. We're also having to have a very different conversation with parents as well. This is no longer about, keep your kids in school, make sure that their friends are good people. This is a conversation that regards, make sure that your medicine cabinet is locked up.
Part of what President Trump is saying is that they're going to get this really great advertising campaign, and it sounds like he's looking at a part 2 of this Just Say No campaign. Will that be effective?
Absolutely not. Our president has suffered through addiction on a personal level, watching his brother suffer through alcoholism. So I would have expected him to understand addiction a little more than thinking that it would be effective to run another Just Say No campaign. The Just Say No campaigns didn't work, and now we have to take a different approach.
So do you think that we even need an ad campaign at all?
But I would really like to see the resources focused on getting people treatment, not trying to scare people off from using drugs that they might be handed by their doctor.
I'm sure there are those who would say, you can't say they were completely across the board, they didn't work, because for some people they probably did. By and large, these experts and studies are saying they were somewhat ineffective. Why?
Yeah, because think about all the commercials you watch. Over the course of your lifetime, experts say that by the time you reach adulthood, you've seen tens of thousands of pro-substance abuse ads. Think about all those beer commercials and cigarette ads. Like,
Sure.
They are telling you to do this, and then you squeak in a little Just Say No ad. It doesn't really balance out. And now we have a different issue because opioids are not typically advertised on television, but pain is. And so they're saying if you have these problems, consult your doctor to get medication. And this disease is so different now because it starts in the doctor's office versus in somebody's basement or finding a dealer. Your dealer is your doctor.
Is your doctor. And you see those ads out there now for pain with constipation in case you take this, so it's just normalized. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Alex, thank you.